The third series of the evening, we're on Frozen Temple, spawning to the top left-hand side in red. It's Sylvanas, playing for Euronix Gaming, and spawning to the bottom right-hand side in teal, we have our turn player Grizzly. TvT, a matchup that has changed quite a bit since the beginning of Legacy of the Void, especially through the addition of the tanky vac mechanic, where a medivac can load up a siege tank and can also release it in siege mode, so that a tank will be able to shoot, get picked up, then get moved to somewhere else, and then just shoot again. And this special mechanic actually changed a lot of stuff in TvT, because from that point on, tanks didn't need as much pre-position planning than before. So you could just walk across the map, then just immediately position your tanks in a position where you would need them to be, and the defender actually didn't really have a timing window where they could try to attack you while your tanks were still sieging, or while your army was moving with your tanks still not in siege mode. So, and all of that just got denied. From then on, it was actually just possible to shoot at your opponent with your tanks almost immediately by just dropping them down. And thus positional play in TvT became kind of less important. It's still important, but it's mostly about whoever gets the important position first will normally be able to keep it. Unless, of course, your opponent just has more tanks than you and just out-macroed you tank-wise, then you can normally just also go in. So that's why a lot of TvTs became marine tank slugfests, where both sides just try to get the opponent out of position and then just throw in the tank-evacs and just kill them. So some players actually enjoy the amount of micro involved right now. Other players just are just sad that the positional play went down from that on. So let's see what's actually going to happen. Okay, Grizzly just tried to scout with her SCV, I think it was down here, but the Reaper was already in position. So Sylvanas actually just going for the typical 1-1-1 build as well, where she will now be able to produce, actually Stim quite early on, maybe even a few Marauders. No, it's not. It's for Banshees. I was already wondering, that was quite odd, the Tech Lab in addition to the Barracks. So yeah, that's actually just for the starports, so she will go into Banshees later on. In the meantime, she will just try to deal some damage with 2 Reapers and a Hellion. Actually also quite interesting, a lot of players just want to go into a Reaper and 2 Hellions and then move into your opponent's base. But yeah, this time around it's the 2 Reapers and the Hellion. So actually Grizzly has to be a little bit careful right now. If she just sends too few units towards the supply depot, this unit composition will just hard counter hers. So she will just lose these few units in an instant without even being able to deal damage back towards her opponent. So yeah, actually quite nice how she does this, just keeps the Marines a little bit back behind, because Reapers and Hellions both are not really good in just tearing down buildings, so she actually gets some time before she finally has to do something. Okay, first siege tank is out. With the siege tank in a better position, this harassment should actually end completely for now. I mean, the Reapers could still hop in somewhere around here, but the Reapers alone won't really do that much damage against the Marines. Sylvanas actually scans, sees now what her opponent is doing, that she went into a second command center, but it's not done yet, while her own command center is being built down here as well. Seems as if Sylvanas actually wants to continue with the aggression, or a little harassed actually, we have to say, with the Banshee. Cloak is almost done, and then she will fly in and will probably be able to pick off a lot of things, because there's actually no turret inside Grizzly's base. Seems as if Grizzly hasn't been aware of the possibility of a Banshee that early on, or maybe she's just forgotten about it. But yeah, I mean, she has an engineering bay, but still no turret in position, so she will have to use scans in order to detect that Banshee and to shoot it down eventually, if possible. I mean, if Sylvanas just is on top of her control, she will not let that Banshee die, even if the opponent just walks in and wants to scan. There's a scan available, so Grizzly will be able to just kill the Banshee off, and now it even loses the cloak over here, and gets it! That's actually a nice catch for her. Although, of course, she's still behind economically-wise, I think. Yeah, I mean, right now, Sylvanas has finally... Actually, not that much. I mean, Sylvanas has finally managed to get her base up, has already turned it into an orbital command, but she has it in position, while her opponent, unfortunately, doesn't. So, Grizzly really has to decide on when she wants to move out and place her command center, because the longer she waits, the more she will get behind in workers and in economy, and that's something she just can't afford for all too long. And it seems as if finally she's decided to walk out. I mean, she has a lot of marines and tanks as well, and it actually seems as if she doesn't, as if she not only wants to defend her own base, but even move out for a full-out assault while just taking the base behind it. So even, even having built a Cyclone behind it just in case that Sylvanas was going for another Banshee. I don't really see how much she can do over at her opponent's base. She has a few more army units, but the overall supply is better for Sylvanas, and Grizzly has to make something happen right here and right now. I mean, only now is she taking her own natural base, while Sylvanas has had her own for quite some time, and she will even be able to produce another one once this push is being held, while Grizzly just will have lost everything. And now we finally see about the tank evac mechanic just denying that positional advantage of that tank over here, because you could just instantly siege these tanks at the position where you needed them to be. So yeah, at least one tank got shot down. Has to be careful here with the medivacs. You don't want to lose the high ground vision. She also has a Viking over here, so she could still keep it. But the problem is that Sylvanas has already two Vikings out, which are going to kill this one. And now the tank evacs or the medivacs just have to fly away, because there's Sylvanas losing a Viking over here, a little bit unnecessary. But yeah, I mean, she has to be careful not to lose her medivacs over here. They are the only thing that grant her high ground vision, and they are of course also important to play out the tank evac mechanic card. So let's see, but I mean, like I said before, she needs to deal some damage, and she actually isn't. She's kinda keeping her opponent back in her own base, but that's something that Sylvanas can actually just afford for now. She already has the better economy, and she's already she's still producing a few units. So even if Grizzly finally manages to keep up with Sylvanas' economy over here, it will still be a better game for Sylvanas, because she will have more units out anyways. Okay, it seems as if Sylvanas actually is a little bit impatient here, just wants to get out now, tries to kill off the units that are left over, and does so quite convincingly, although losing a lot of her own units in the process. But seems she figured out that it's just not really that important for her if she loses more units in inefficient fights, because she can just destroy her opponent anyways. So, and from now on, it's getting quite difficult for Grizzly. If Sylvanas just kinda does a lot of mistakes when engaging that choke point over here, maybe Grizzly might be able to get a few good traits and pull herself back into the game. But if Sylvanas breaks through this defense, then it's just over. Okay, nice Widowmine shot over here, even killing a Viking, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Ooh, and I don't know if I really like this pushing out by Grizzly here. Okay, just wants to get everything in position. Actually, not a very good siege here by Sylvanas. She doesn't have a lot of medivacs around, so she needed to just roll over with these tanks and siege them in a position where Grizzly's siege tanks could actually just shoot at them for one little period of time here. And now Sylvanas just moving forwards. Grizzly not paying attention, even losing one of her precious tanks. And every tank is really, really valuable right now. So we see that Sylvanas, in the meantime, as we were talking about it earlier on, has already taken a third base, or has already built a third command center here. So she will be able to just land it at some point, and then she will be ahead by 1 base, which is actually quite a lot. Okay, Grizzly just tries to move out, tries to kill the tanks, which is actually quite well done. And like I said before, if she just keeps on trading halfway cost efficiently, then I think it should be okay. But the biggest problem is the red mass that's just walking across the map right now. Seems as if Russia is headed your way, Grizzly, and there's not much that you can do. This force will just overpower hers so easily. I mean, actually she doesn't really need to play tactical anymore. She could just choose her whole army, just spread it up a little, and then move in from this angle and just kill everything. I mean, it's only 1 tank. Of course, Sylvanas can't really know that for sure. There could be tanks back here or even here, but now she scans and sees that there's actually nothing except then 1 tank. And I don't really know what she's waiting for. She's just spreading up her units even more, setting up a hard contain over here that Grizzly has actually no chance whatsoever of breaking through. And, well, in the meantime, it seems as if Sylvanas just wants to play the safe game, doesn't really want to overcommit, doesn't want to take any chances of losing this game anymore, so she just plays it, she just plays the safe game, but now finally moves in, realizing that she doesn't have to wait up anymore. Even the pure bio force is enough. The siege tank fire is not even needed anymore. Grizzly just closes off her supply depot, but I mean, what can she do? There's no more units to defend her bases. She will now lose all of her workers down here, might even be losing the orbital command if Sylvanas even bothered to shoot it down. She doesn't, and now finally the tanks also pull up, are in siege tank position, and that 1 little siege tank over here, of course it's the advantageous position, but if your opponent just does have so much stuff, it doesn't matter anymore, and Sylvanas takes the first game. Apotheosis is the second map of the series, and spawning to the top left hand side in red, leading 1-0, is Sylvanas. And to the bottom right hand side in teal we have Grizzly. Who actually chose this map because, as I've said several times before, it's loser's pick after the first map. The first map is being chosen by the person who has the lower MMR at the point in time when the match is being played. So I think Grizzly should be the one with the lower MMR. So she actually chose the first map, which was Frozen Temple, and now the second map, which is Apotheosis. So let's see if she actually has a plan for this map. Maybe something specially designed, or if she just tries to macro through with that one build that she just tries to get better at. So, in the meantime, we have almost identical builds. It's really a mirror matchup, so to speak, with the exception that Sylvanas is going for a Reaper, while Grizzly is going for a Marine. Quite an interesting choice. Well, 1 Reaper usually can beat a Marine quite easily. A Reaper can actually take on 2 Marines with a little bit of micro effort, and can actually even take 3 Marines if they're stupid enough to walk into the Reaper grenade. So, but yeah, it's actually quite difficult. So, command center over here seems as if this time around Grizzly really wants to take a hidden base, well, kind of a hidden base, over at that location, it seems, because otherwise you would normally not build that command center over here. But more likely build it over here so that you can just fly it down to here. You want to keep the flight distance as short as possible, because you don't want to lose any more mining time that is essentially needed. That's what Sylvanas is doing. She doesn't want to lose any mining time by flying a building down. So that's why she very, very often builds her command centers right down that ramp at the actual natural base location. And thus far, not many opponents have really tried to take their advantage of that. Although you could. Just build a few early units, send them across the map, try to avoid the usual Reaper route, and then just arrive at your opponent's base when your Reaper arrives at your base. And then you can actually just delay that command center by so much, or even make your opponent cancel it. Depends on whatever you send across the map and how much you are committed to that. So now finally the Reaper comes in, and there we see big Reaper grenade over here, but yeah, the 2 Marines just drive it away for now. And let's actually have a look at what Sylvanas was able to see. Okay, just everything she needed to. She saw the factory, saw the starport, so she knows what she's up against, most likely. And in the meantime, just doing almost an identical build. This time, once more, it seems she might want to go into some Banshees later on, not producing anything with that factory. Right now it's going into tank production, and I think she will stay there. So, like we've seen before, if she really wants to go for a quick Banshee, she would rather have one of the barracks with a tech lab, so she could more easily switch. But this time around, yeah, okay, no Banshee play at all. It's just going to be tanks and a reactor, and then Sylvanas will just mass a few tanks and Marines, and will try to walk across the map in order to deal some damage. Well, like I said before, the already interesting thing is that Grizzly actually went for that kind of a hidden base, or the natural base in at a location where you normally wouldn't suspect it, or expect it, more likely. So I don't actually know. I mean, yeah, it seems so. If you just walk across the map, using the usual route, you will not see that base over here. So it might surprise Sylvanas by a little bit if she either just walks in and sees no natural base, or if she just scans for it and sees no natural. I mean, there are two things you could think at that point in time. Either your opponent is going for one base all in, which is actually kind of, which is actually a thing that really could happen from here on out, because as we've seen, Grizzly is supposedly the weaker player. So for a weaker player to go for some sort of one base all-in cheese is not that unlikely. So maybe it would just work if Sylvanas actually bothered to scout, which she does not. So if actually Grizzly really wanted to mind game her opponent, it actually didn't work. Well, here's the first scout now. Unfortunately, Sylvanas really... Or maybe it's actually the best thing about this. Sylvanas just saw a few medivacs moving out of the base. She now knows that her opponent doesn't have a base over here. Seems as if she just wants to send out another Marine in order to get the information whether the gold base has been taken. And maybe if the Marine just realizes that there's no base over here and no base at the gold, she might flip out, or she will just walk over here and see that it's there okay. So let's see that. But for now, we are interested in what this drop will be able to do. Actually nothing, because there's already Vikings out. Well, fortunately for Grizzly enough, she reacts pretty quickly and is now able to just save a few of her medevacs. Sieges her tank and... well, a quite nice position. So if actually Sylvanas just wants to move out with most of her army using the direct way, the tanks will just put heavy fire onto them. Unless this one, because it's not sieged up yet. Okay, Vikings are moving out, trying to get a shot off on these medevacs. So what about these... okay, still it seems as if, yep, Sylvanas still doesn't know what's happening. Just sees more and more units moving out. So she might, as I said, already think that her opponent is maybe all in with just one base. Yeah, even scouting once more, just really wants, or even sacrificing another scan. She really desperately wants to know what's going on, sacrificing another scan to see whether there's more army or if there's more of a committed push. And now, nice move here, just loading in some units, dropping them right on top of that tank. Siege tank doesn't even get a shot off because the units are just too close. Takes it out without any more losses, and nicely done by Sylvanas. And like I said before, she still doesn't know what's going on. I think Sylvanas must assume that her opponent is like totally all in when she isn't. Unfortunately for Grizzly, she didn't really pay attention towards the worker production of that base, so it's almost not fully set. It's not fully saturated at all. There's 8 workers missing for the mineral fields alone, so her income is actually not as good as it could be on 2 bases, while Sylvanas actually has 2 bases fully saturated, even oversaturated at that point in time, and is already taking a 3rd base now at the gold minerals. So I mean, now she's while Grizzly is just taking her 3rd base at the same time, but it's only the normal mineral base, and Sylvanas has been up in economy for quite some time. So again, her army is way bigger already, and it's just growing minute after minute. So finally, I think Sylvanas just scouts that the command center is now over here, still has no idea about that command center over to the right hand side, might even be thinking that her opponent is finally on 2 bases, but only now. Yeah, like I said, I mean, this could actually just trigger her into a wrong decision that's actually not wrong, which is quite odd to say, but if you get what I mean, the problem right now is that Sylvanas could actually think that her opponent was like 1 basing for a long time, now finally getting into 2 bases. So Sylvanas might think that she actually has the superior economy, and she actually does, but she shouldn't have if Grizzly had done everything correctly. So yeah, this push could potentially not work out well at all, but it's probably going to, since Sylvanas actually had an advantage she shouldn't be having, although she thinks that she has it, and it actually is that way, if you get my meaning, which is actually quite difficult, I admit it. So finally the units are moving upwards that ramp. Sylvanas scans one more time, wants to see where Grizzly's units are actually at, and will maybe even take a very annoying siege position over at that point. Will be able to like shoot into the main base over here, but for now she just wants to take out that siege tank over to the right hand side, and now it's only 1 siege tank left to the 4-5 siege tanks of Sylvanas. And like we said before, in TvT it's almost come down to whoever has more siege tanks in the fight just wins, and this is what Sylvanas is going to do in just a few seconds. I mean, she could, with all the medivacs, she could actually just load in and fly in here. There's like 1 missile turret over here, actually quite a lot of missile turrets, but I think if you really wanted to, you could just doom drop, fly in with everything, and yeah, then just, and this is what she just does. No, well, I was just wondering. That was like an that was like a quite odd direction here. But yeah, it seems as if she just wants to get in, just sending in 1 Viking that draws the turret fire and now just flies in with the rest of the boost. Might even be losing 1 of the medivacs or maybe a second one, but it doesn't even matter. Finally, the tanks and the marines are in position. The Abaya units of Grizzly doesn't even have a chance to get close towards the tanks, and everything just gets taken down. In the meantime, we have a second push over to the natural base, but it gets hold quite easily. Unfortunately, the rest of the units inside the main base survive, and Sylvanas now in the production, even still having a tank available in order to shoot down whatever comes out of Grizzly's factories and barracks. And it seems as if Grizzly might be able to just barely hold it with the rest of her army. I mean, every reinforcement that gets just sent across the the map, sorry for that, just gets caught by the tank over here and the rest of the units, but eventually it's just being overwhelmed. 2 more tanks still raining fire on all of the buildings, while the rest of the units just tear down everything else. Grizzly drops to 46 supply, GG's out, and Sylvanas takes the second game for a 2-0 lead. And we're in Galactic Process. Spawning to the bottom left hand side in red is our Terran Sylvanas, leading 2-0. And to the top right in teal we have the other Terran player, it's Grizzly. She's down 0-2 and has to think of something in order to take her opponent down. Maybe mix it up with a little cheese, but no. There's the supply depot incoming and no workers are out on the map. So cheese is not the weapon of choice for Grizzly here. She just wants to play a straight macro game again. Let's see if it's going to work out better for her this time. refinery already in place for Sylvanas. And then the barracks right afterwards, which normally means that Sylvanas wants to get a quick factory out, because that's what you actually get if you take a refinery first. Fill it up with workers as soon as possible, and then going into the barracks. The barracks will actually end once at the same time when the workers will have gathered 100 gas. And with these 100 gas, you will be able to produce a factory right away, which is like the quickest factory possible in the game. So, same time, Grizzly has almost finished her barracks over here. No gas taken yet. So it seems as if she wants to go into a quick expansion this time away, this time right away. And I don't really know how much I like this. So SCV is now out. Seems as if Sylvanas just wants to be a little bit annoying with her own SCV over here, trying to make Grizzly just pull off that one SCV, but now she might even be able to get that SCV over here with a little bit of stutter stepping, but it just barely gets away. A little bit lucky here for Sylvanas, but also nicely moved. While she takes a base down here at the same time, now going into the already announced factory. So this is actually quite daring by Grizzly. We haven't seen her do something like that before. Well, maybe in some other games, but not in this series. It's actually just the usual fast expand we know from Wings of Liberty, where you just build one Rex and then go into a command center immediately. Then building a few more Rexes right afterwards, and then just finally going into gas, trying to get your tech up and everything. Usually in Wings of Liberty it actually worked out quite nicely. Oh, nice catch here by Sylvanas with a Reaper, just getting that building SCV, so the command center of Grizzly will just be delayed a little bit further. But yeah, in Wings of Liberty was actually the go-to build, the absolute Terran standard build in almost every matchup, just going one Rex expand. But in Legacy of the Void it has become a little bit more dangerous, since using only bio units it's just so much inferior now to tank play. I mean, you can still make it work if you always keep an eye on your opponent's army position, if you realize when your opponent is moving out, when he's coming your way or when she's coming your way, and when your opponent is going to arrive at your base, you might be able to just intercept them and get a good trade. But yeah, I mean, if you just have a few Marines and your opponent has like only one tank evac and is capable of microing it, it's just so damn difficult to get anything done with only micro, with only micro and bio. So once you finally reach like a critical mass of bio, it can actually work out quite well against tanks, especially if your opponent only has like 3 or 4 of them. But the longer the game goes, again, just pure bio won't cut it in TvT anymore due to the tank evac mechanic. So let's see, Sylvanas again doing some more pressure over here to the right hand side in the natural mineral line. And even getting a few workers over here, not losing anything. That's always a good thing to do if you can just harass your opponent, getting their attention drawn to somewhere where they normally don't want it to be, and getting out without even taking any losses. That's always a good thing to do. So seems as if right now maybe Sylvanas is not watching. Okay, seems as if she's reacting quite nicely here, not losing anything once more. Oh, did she? Ah, she lost one Reaper. Okay, never mind. Nothing really all too important. Banshee on its way. Cloak also on the way. We also have a third base on the way. Seems as if Sylvanas just wants to play her standard macro game while harassing her opponent for a little bit. Grizzly already behind by quite a bit, so a worker in supply. She has 6 workers less and only 1 mule at the moment. This also doesn't look all too good. Banshee is now moving in. We have 1 turret in position, which is at least a little bit nice, so that she will be able to just keep her mineral line quite clear. Should just react with these Marines down here in order to take out the Banshee over here. Seems to be a little bit afraid of these units moving in once she just moves her units towards the Banshee. But yeah, I mean, a Banshee that's close to a turret has already gotten 5 hits and 5 worker kills. That's just something you don't want to happen. And in the meantime, like I said before, while Grizzly is just trying to micro her units up in the main base, Sylvanas moves in, tries to get more kills with the Hellions, actually kind of fails a little bit and only gets 1 more worker. So the Banshee was actually worth way more. But yeah, everything that Grizzly loses right now and every bit of attention that goes into fending off harassment just doesn't go into her own macro, and macro-wise she's already quite far behind, since her opponent has already produced her own 3rd base, is now morphing it into an orbital command and will soon land it down here over at the natural 3rd base location. And from then on out, I don't actually see what Grizzly can do. I mean, if Grizzly had some sort of scary army, we could maybe just talk in favor of her, that she could just walk in and try to make something happen. But Sylvanas already has 2 tanks. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of map vision, but yeah, now finally she just sieges the tanks up just for the heck of it, just as a precautious measure. And yeah, from now on, Grizzly just won't be able to make anything happen with her own units over here. Banshee just returns with a cloak on, tries to take out more units over here. Finally the turret gets done, but doesn't even get a shot off at that Banshee, losing 2 more workers from here on out. And like we said before, I mean, she's already that far behind, 31 to 51 workers. Being down 20 supply and workers is just awful. It's just an awful position. And yeah, like I said, I mean, with a 3rd base on, Sylvanas' macro will just explode in 1 more minute, and so will her supply count, and she will just out-macro her opponent convincingly. Okay, even having a sensor tower in place, Sylvanas just again playing the safe game, doesn't want to take any risks. She just gets a full circle of vision where her opponent could come from, especially from these dark areas that you normally don't care about that much. And especially if drops were to come in from that angle, they would just easily get spotted. I think she actually wants to have another sensor tower over here, because a lot of people just break through these rocks without the opponent even knowing, and then they just move in here and kill everything because everything else is out of place. And I think, yeah, there's the sensor tower already incoming. Like I said before, here it is, the movement out. And fortunately for Sylvanas, she just put down the scan in order to see where her opponent was headed. She also has the sensor tower, so even by now she would have realized what's going on. And like I said before, I mean, it's 1 tank and a little bit of bio, while we have 2 tanks already sieged up at the top of the ramp that are just instantly going to kill off a lot of bio before it even can give up the first shot. And then we have a lot of units also available over here, two tanks with medivacs, so she will easily be able to reposition these tanks to whatever position she needs them in. And yeah, it seems as if Grizzly now wants to move out, maybe break through these rocks. Finally gets kind of a good engagement for just a few seconds here, because the rest of the army was out of position. They were only these siege tanks on their own. But Grizzly doesn't really want to commit, doesn't want to try to take down these tank evacs over here, and just retreats for now. But I mean, where can she retreat to? There's only 1 base over here. Does she already have a 3rd base in production? No. It's only upgrades and more. It's only upgrades and more units for her. Same for Sylvanas, but Sylvanas already has her 3rd base. She doesn't really need to take another one at the moment. She can just produce, and then just kill her opponent. And unfortunately for Grizzly, I mean, she must have guessed that, right? But obviously she didn't. Just has moved out with almost all of her army to the left-hand side over here, while the rest of Sylvanas' main force just walks into the middle line. There's almost no defenses over here. Everything just dies in an instant. It's so horrible to watch. Now the rest of Grizzly's army finally arrives, just gets torn apart by only siege tank fire. GG, and Sylvanas takes the 3-0 and the series.